The courtroom was buzzing with a quiet energy that made every person inside feel the weight of what was about to unfold. It was one of those moments when the air itself seems thick and heavy, filled with anticipation and silent questions. People from different walks of life had gathered, all focused on one important event, a trial that had captured the attention of the entire city. It was not just any trial. It was about a high-profile case involving a person whose name was well known, someone who had once been respected but was now accused of serious crimes. The judge, an experienced man known for his strictness and fairness, sat at the bench. His black robe made him look even more authoritative. He had seen many cases before, but today was different. There was a lot riding on this trial, not just for the accused, but for the entire justice system. The judge's face was serious, his eyes sharp and focused as he prepared to oversee the proceedings. He tapped his gavel lightly, signaling the start of the session. Everyone in the courtroom immediately quieted down, showing respect for the process. The accused was sitting calmly, but there was an unmistakable tension in the way he held himself. His hands were clenched, and sometimes his eyes would dart nervously towards the judge or the prosecutor. He was a man who once enjoyed a good reputation, but now everything was at stake: his freedom, his reputation, and possibly his entire future. Beside him, his lawyer was reviewing some documents, ready to defend him with all the knowledge and skill at his disposal. On the other side of the courtroom, the prosecutor stood confidently. She was determined and precise, someone who believed deeply in justice and had prepared her case with great care. Her voice was clear and steady as she began presenting the evidence. She showed photographs, shared witness statements, and laid out facts in a way that made the listeners lean in closer. The evidence seemed strong, painting a picture that was hard to ignore. The courtroom was filled with spectators, family members, journalists, and curious citizens who had come to witness the trial. Everyone had their own reasons for being there. Some were hoping for justice, others were looking for answers, and a few were just caught up in the drama of it all. Whispers floated quietly around the room during breaks, as people discussed what they had heard so far and tried to predict the outcome. The judge listened carefully to every word, never interrupting but always watching the expressions of everyone involved. His role was not just to listen, but to make sure that the law was followed, that fairness was upheld, and that the truth could come to light. The courtroom was like a stage, and he was the one who had to ensure that the play unfolded correctly. The tension grew as the prosecutor finished her opening statement. The defense lawyer stood to respond, trying to challenge the accusations and raise doubts about the evidence. His voice was calm but persuasive, pointing out inconsistencies and asking the court to consider other possibilities. The battle between the two sides had begun, and it was clear that the trial would not be easy or straightforward. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. From the back of the courtroom, a young girl stood up. She was small, maybe just in her early teens, and her presence seemed almost out of place in such a serious setting. Everyone turned to look at her. The judge paused, his eyebrows raised in surprise. The gallery where she had been sitting was usually a place for observers to remain quiet and still, but she was now making her way forward. The murmurs in the courtroom grew louder as she walked towards the front. Some people whispered questions, wondering who she was and why she was interrupting. The judge called out to her firmly, asking what she wanted and why she was breaking the rules of the court. She didn't hesitate. With a steady voice that surprised everyone, she spoke 4 simple words. Those words, though few in number, carried a weight and meaning that instantly changed the mood in the room. The judge's face paled as if the words had hit him like a shock. The prosecutor and defense lawyer both stopped in their tracks, looking at each other in disbelief. The spectators leaned forward, eager to hear more, sensing that something unexpected and important was happening. The girl's interruption was unlike anything the courtroom had seen before. It was bold and unexpected, but it felt urgent and true. What exactly those 4 words were was a secret that held the key to everything about to unfold. They hinted at something the court had missed, something that could alter the course of the trial dramatically. For a moment the courtroom was silent, as if everyone was holding their breath. The judge, usually so composed, looked shaken. He asked for a short pause to gather his thoughts and figure out the next steps. This moment was a turning point. The trial, which had been proceeding in a certain way, now faced a new challenge. The girl's courage to speak up in front of such a powerful gathering, despite the rules and expectations, was remarkable. It showed that sometimes, even in the most formal and controlled environments, truth can break through in the most unexpected ways. The story of that day in the courtroom would later be remembered not just for the trial itself, but for the young girl who dared to speak out. Her simple words became the spark that could change everything, reminding everyone present that justice was not just about rules and procedures, but about listening to the voices that mattered most, even the smallest ones. The courtroom was filled with a sudden, surprising silence as the young girl stood up from the crowd. Her small figure moved steadily toward the front, where the judge sat. The moment seemed almost unreal to everyone present. People had come, expecting a formal, serious trial, with each person playing their part according to the rules. But here was this young girl, interrupting the entire process. It was something nobody had anticipated. The judge, a man used to commanding respect and controlling the courtroom, looked visibly surprised. His eyes widened for a brief moment, and his calm, commanding voice took on a tone of curiosity mixed with caution as he asked, "Young lady, what is your business here? This is a court of law, not a place for interruptions." She didn't hesitate. She spoke clearly and confidently, even though the room was packed with adults who all turned to look at her. The girl's voice was steady and calm, carrying just 4 simple words, but those words had the power to shake the courtroom to its core. The 4 words were enough to stop everything in its tracks. The judge's face went pale. For a moment, he looked as if he had seen something terrifying. The prosecutor, who had been prepared and confident moments ago, blinked in surprise. The defense lawyer stopped mid-sentence, his expression changing from confidence to confusion. The spectators, who were quietly watching the events unfold, now leaned forward, eager to hear more. The entire room was filled with a sudden energy, a mix of shock, curiosity, and tension. Nobody expected a young girl, someone who was clearly not part of the trial's main players, to have anything important to say. But those 4 words suggested otherwise. It was like a secret had been whispered loudly, a truth that no one had dared to speak before. The judge, normally so in control, looked unsettled and unsure for the first time. The girl's interruption was bold. In courtrooms, interruptions are not taken lightly. Everyone is expected to wait their turn, follow the procedures, and respect the authority of the judge. Yet here was a child, breaking every rule calmly and fearlessly. That alone made everyone wonder what she knew. Why had she risked standing up and speaking out? Some people in the gallery whispered to each other, trying to guess what the girl's words could mean. Was she connected to the accused? Was she related to the witnesses? Or was she someone who had stumbled upon a secret? The curiosity grew, but no one wanted to speak loudly in the courtroom out of respect for the process. The judge quickly regained his composure but was clearly troubled. He looked directly at the girl and said, "Explain yourself. Tell us why you interrupted this trial with those words." The girl took a deep breath. She didn't look scared or nervous anymore. Instead, she seemed determined. She said more words, explaining in simple terms what she had meant, what she knew, and why it was important. Her words suggested there was information that had not been shared, facts that could change the entire case. The judge listened carefully, nodding slowly. The atmosphere changed from confusion to seriousness. This was no longer just an interruption. It was a possible breakthrough. The girl's words had opened a door no one had even realized was there. The prosecution and defense lawyers both asked to question the girl, wanting to understand exactly what she meant. They wanted to know if her information was true, and if so, how it would affect the case. The judge allowed the questioning, understanding the importance of the moment. As the girl spoke more, the room hung on every word. She told a story about what she had seen and heard, things that others had missed or ignored. She spoke about people who had been afraid to tell the truth, and about hidden details that could change the direction of the trial. Her story was clear and simple, but powerful. The judge's initial shock turned into concern. He realized that this girl's words could not be dismissed as a childish interruption. They were a call to look deeper, to reconsider what had been accepted as fact so far. The court was no longer just a place for formal arguments, but a space where truth had to be rediscovered. The people watching the trial could feel the change. The trial had been moving steadily along, with everyone believing the evidence was complete. Now uncertainty had crept in. The girl's interruption was like a sudden thunderstorm on a calm day. It disrupted everything and forced everyone to pay attention. The judge announced a short recess. He wanted time to think, to consult with the lawyers, and to decide the best way forward. The prosecutor and defense lawyers left the courtroom quietly, whispering among themselves about what this new development might mean. The girl sat down, calm and quiet again, her role for now complete, but her impact just beginning. Outside the courtroom, reporters and spectators gathered, discussing the event excitedly. The girl's 4 words had become the talk of the day. Many were amazed at her courage to stand up and speak in such a serious place. Others were curious about what would happen next. The story was no longer just about the accused, but about this unexpected voice that had interrupted the trial and changed its course. The judge returned to his chambers during the recess. He was deep in thought. His mind raced through every detail of the case, trying to understand what the girl's words could mean for the evidence already presented. He knew that justice required more than just following procedures. It needed truth, even if it came from the most unlikely sources. He called the legal teams for a private meeting. Together they discussed the new information, trying to verify its accuracy and importance. Investigators were tasked with following up on the girl's claims immediately. The trial was no longer just about presenting evidence, but about uncovering hidden facts and ensuring fairness. The girl's brave act reminded everyone that sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truths. In a place where power and authority usually dominate, a young girl's interruption proved that courage and honesty could make a difference. It was a moment that no one in the courtroom would ever forget. As the recess ended, the courtroom filled again. The judge was calm but focused, ready to guide the trial through this unexpected turn. Everyone waited, wondering what new chapters would unfold because of those 4 simple words. The story was far from over. The girl's interruption had set in motion a series of events that would challenge assumptions, reveal secrets, and ultimately reshape the meaning of justice in this case. And all of it began with the courage to speak out, even when it seemed impossible. The moment the girl spoke those 4 words, the entire courtroom changed in an instant. The judge, who until then had appeared steady and in full control, suddenly showed signs of deep disturbance. His face, usually calm and composed, went pale. The expression in his eyes shifted, surprise mixed with unease, almost as if a shadow had been cast over the whole trial. The courtroom, once buzzing with the formal rhythm of a legal proceeding, fell silent. The judge took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He looked directly at the girl, and for a moment it felt like the weight of everything in that room rested on his shoulders. He was the guardian of justice in that place, and now he was faced with something unexpected, something that challenged everything he thought he knew about the case. The girl, standing quietly in front of the court, met the judge's gaze without fear. Her courage was striking, especially given the seriousness of the situation and the powerful people surrounding her. There was a sense that she wasn't just speaking for herself, but carrying a truth that demanded to be heard, no matter the cost. The judge finally spoke, his voice steady but serious. "Your interruption is unusual, but the court must hear you out. What you have said could change the course of this trial." His words sent a ripple through the courtroom. Everyone understood that the trial was no longer the straightforward process it had been just moments ago. The prosecution and defense lawyers exchanged uneasy glances. The prosecutor, who had been confident in presenting the evidence, now looked uncertain. She was a professional, but even she hadn't anticipated this development. The defense lawyer, sensing an opportunity but also a complication, prepared to listen carefully. The judge allowed the girl to explain herself fully. She spoke clearly, repeating the important message behind those 4 words and adding details that made the courtroom listen intently. What she revealed was not just a simple fact, but something that challenged the credibility of key evidence that had been presented earlier in the trial. The judge leaned forward, his interest clearly piqued. He asked questions, seeking clarification. The girl answered calmly, without hesitation, and her story began to unfold like a puzzle piece fitting into place. Her words suggested that someone in the case had been dishonest, or that important evidence had been hidden from the court. The atmosphere in the courtroom was electric. The spectators, journalists, and even the court staff were all paying close attention. The idea that the trial could be tainted by hidden truths made the case far more complicated and intriguing. For many, it was a moment that felt like watching history being made. The judge's expression grew more serious as he considered the implications. Justice is supposed to be blind, but it depends on truth and honesty. If the evidence was manipulated, or if facts were concealed, then justice would not be served. The judge's job was to uncover the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. He called for a short recess, allowing the lawyers to discuss the new information privately, and for investigators to begin verifying the girl's claims. The courtroom emptied slowly, but the tension lingered in the air. Everyone knew that the trial had entered a new phase, one filled with uncertainty, discovery, and the possibility of upheaval. During the recess, the judge met with his clerks and legal advisors. They examined the girl's statements carefully, looking for any indication of credibility or fabrication. They contacted investigators and requested that certain evidence be re-examined. The judge understood that he needed to be cautious but also thorough, balancing the need for justice with the risk of delaying the trial unnecessarily. The prosecution team was divided. Some members believed the girl's testimony might reveal a genuine mistake, or even intentional wrongdoing by the defense or witnesses. Others were skeptical, worried that this could be a distraction or a ploy. The defense team, meanwhile, saw hope in the girl's words, hoping it could weaken the prosecution's case and possibly lead to an acquittal. Outside the courtroom, reporters began to speculate and write headlines about the mysterious interruption. The public, who had been following the trial closely, became fascinated with the story of the young girl who had dared to interrupt a high-profile case. Social media buzzed with opinions and theories. Some admired her bravery, others questioned her motives. Back inside the courtroom, when the trial resumed, the mood was different. The judge opened the session by addressing the new developments. He explained that the court had taken the girl's statements seriously, and that further investigations were underway. He reminded everyone that justice was the priority, and that the trial must continue with fairness and openness. The prosecutors adjusted their strategy, now having to respond to new questions about the evidence. Witnesses who had testified earlier were called back for additional questioning. Some appeared nervous, as if they too were unsure about what might be uncovered. The defense lawyers used this opportunity to press harder, pushing for more scrutiny of the prosecution's case. Throughout this process, the girl remained present but quiet. Her role had shifted from a sudden interrupter to a key figure whose words were driving the investigation. Her courage had given the court permission to question what had been accepted as truth. As more facts came to light, the judge began to realize the full impact of what had happened. The trial was no longer just about deciding guilt or innocence, based on the initial evidence. It had become a deeper search for justice, one that required patience, careful examination, and respect for truth. The courtroom became a place of intense scrutiny, with every piece of evidence examined anew. The tension was palpable as the trial unfolded in unexpected ways. Yet, there was also a sense of hope, that by listening to the girl's words, the court might correct mistakes and ensure fairness. The judge's reaction, pale and shaken at first, transformed into a determined resolve. He understood that justice was not easy. It was often messy and complicated, but it was his duty to protect it, even when the truth came from a surprising source. In the days that followed, the trial moved forward with new energy. The girl's interruption had opened a door that no one could close. It was a reminder that justice depends not only on laws and procedures, but on the courage of individuals to speak the truth, no matter the risks. The courtroom scene, once predictable and routine, had become a story of human bravery, uncertainty, and the relentless pursuit of fairness. The judge's pale face had shown the weight of responsibility he carried, a burden shared by everyone who believed in justice. The story was far from over, but this moment marked a turning point. The girl's 4 words had shaken the foundations of the trial, and the judge, along with everyone else, had no choice but to listen and respond. It was a powerful reminder that even the smallest voices can have the greatest impact when truth is at stake. After the courtroom recess, a wave of activity surged behind the scenes. The judge, the lawyers, and the investigators were all working tirelessly to follow up on the girl's shocking interruption. Her words had raised serious questions that nobody could ignore. What had seemed like a straightforward trial was now full of twists and turns, as the truth began to unravel in ways nobody had expected. As soon as the recess was called, investigators were dispatched immediately to dig deeper into the new claims. The girl's interruption had hinted at facts that had been missed or possibly hidden from the court. This was a crucial moment. If her claims were true, it would mean that the case might have been based on incomplete or even false evidence. The investigation teams began by retracing the steps of the witnesses. They revisited places and talked, again to people who had been involved or seen events related to the trial. They searched for anything that could support the girl's words. Sometimes, even small details could lead to big discoveries. They went through documents, photographs, and recorded conversations to find clues that others might have overlooked. The prosecutors and defense lawyers, while preparing for the next session of the trial, kept close contact with the investigators. Both sides understood that the new information could change everything. The prosecution feared losing their strong case, while the defense hoped it would prove their client's innocence. The courtroom, once confident in its narrative, was now filled with uncertainty. The atmosphere was tense, but also charged with curiosity. People wanted to see how this would unfold and what secrets might come to light. As investigators worked, surprising things began to surface. They found inconsistencies in witness statements, details that didn't match earlier testimonies. Some witnesses had apparently changed their stories, while others admitted to being pressured to keep quiet. There were even whispers about people who might have hidden evidence or tried to manipulate facts. The girl's words had opened a Pandora's box. What started as a simple interruption was now revealing a complicated web of lies and hidden truths. The trial was no longer just about one person's guilt or innocence. It was about uncovering a bigger story of what had really happened and why some people had tried to keep the truth from coming out. The judge, who had once appeared pale and shocked, now worked with quiet determination. He understood the seriousness of the situation and knew that justice required patience and fairness. He ordered that all new evidence be carefully examined and that witnesses be re-interviewed in court to explain the discrepancies. When the trial resumed, the courtroom was packed once again, but the energy was different. Everyone was on edge, knowing that the truth was being questioned, and that the case might change dramatically. The prosecutors called back key witnesses for additional questioning. Some of these witnesses appeared nervous, their confidence shaken by the new developments. The defense lawyers seized the opportunity to challenge their testimonies, pointing out contradictions and demanding explanations. The tension in the room was palpable. Some witnesses admitted that they had been afraid to speak up earlier. They confessed that pressure from outside the courtroom had influenced their statements. Others revealed that important facts had been deliberately hidden. These revelations sent shockwaves through the trial, forcing everyone to reconsider what they thought they knew. The judge listened carefully to every new testimony. He asked tough questions and made sure that the truth was brought to light. His role had shifted from simply managing the trial to becoming a seeker of truth, ensuring that no detail was overlooked. The girl, who had caused this upheaval with just 4 words, remained present in the courtroom. Though quiet, her presence was powerful. She had sparked a chain reaction that was changing the course of justice. People began to realize that sometimes even the smallest voice can have a massive impact. As the days went by, more evidence emerged that supported the girl's claims. Some documents that had been thought lost were found. New witnesses came forward, willing to tell the truth, now that the court had shown it was ready to listen. The defense team grew stronger, and the prosecution had to rethink its strategy. This process was long and difficult. It wasn't easy to unravel years of secrets and lies. The courtroom drama had turned into a deep investigation, with everyone trying to find the real story behind the case. The judge's commitment to fairness and truth inspired respect from everyone present. He showed that justice is not about rushing to a verdict but about carefully weighing every piece of evidence, listening to every voice, and being willing to admit when mistakes have been made. For the accused, this new turn of events was both a challenge and a hope. It gave him a chance to clear his name, but also meant that the truth might reveal uncomfortable facts about others involved. His fate was now tied not only to the trial, but to a larger battle for justice. The girl's 4 words had become a symbol of courage and honesty. Her interruption had reminded everyone that justice depends on truth, and that sometimes those who seem the least likely to make a difference can change everything. As the trial moved forward, it was clear that this case was about more than just guilt or innocence. It was about exposing corruption, fear, and the power of truth. The courtroom had become a place where hidden stories were finally being told, where silence was being broken, and where justice was being redefined. People outside the courtroom watched closely, inspired by the bravery and persistence of those seeking the truth. The media covered every new development, and the public's support for fairness grew stronger. The judge, the lawyers, the investigators, and even the witnesses all understood that they were part of something important. They were not just participants in a trial, but guardians of justice, working together to ensure that the truth prevailed. In the end, the girl's interruption was more than just a moment of boldness. It was the beginning of a journey that would uncover secrets, challenge assumptions, and bring hope to those who believed in justice. The courtroom that day was not just a place for legal battles, but a stage for truth to shine through, proving that sometimes the most unexpected voices have the power to change everything. The courtroom was tense and full of anticipation as the final phase of the trial began. The interruption by the young girl, with her simple yet powerful 4 words, had changed everything. What once seemed like a straightforward case had evolved into a complex and deeply emotional search for truth. Now, the whole community and everyone involved were waiting for justice to finally be served. As the judge took his seat, the atmosphere was heavy with expectation. Everyone knew the trial had stretched far beyond the usual proceedings. This was no longer just about the facts initially presented. It was about justice being corrected, about acknowledging mistakes, and about truth winning over fear and silence. The judge began by addressing the court. He spoke clearly, emphasizing the importance of fairness and the responsibility everyone held to uncover the truth. He reminded everyone that the justice system is designed to protect the innocent and punish the guilty, but only when the facts are fully and honestly presented. He thanked the girl for her courage to speak up and reminded all that sometimes justice needs the bravery of a single voice to move forward. The prosecution, having reviewed the new evidence and testimonies that had emerged after the girl's interruption, was forced to rethink its entire approach. The lead prosecutor, once confident and firm, now appeared more cautious and careful. He knew that the new information had weakened his case and that it was his duty to ensure the trial remained fair. The defense lawyer, on the other hand, was more hopeful than ever. The new evidence had cast serious doubts on the accusations. Witnesses who had originally testified against the accused now showed cracks in their stories. Some even admitted to having been pressured or misled earlier. The defense team worked diligently to highlight these inconsistencies, showing the court that their client deserved a fair judgment free from falsehoods. As the trial moved toward its conclusion, the judge ordered a thorough review of all the evidence, old and new. Every statement, every document, and every testimony was carefully examined again. The process was slow and detailed, but the judge insisted on it, knowing that justice could not be rushed or compromised. One of the most powerful moments came when some witnesses who had been silent or scared to speak before finally stepped forward. They shared their true stories, revealing hidden pressures and fears that had kept them quiet. Their testimonies shed light on the difficulties many faced when trying to speak the truth in a world where power and intimidation often held sway. The courtroom was also witness to emotional moments. The accused, once a figure of suspicion and fear, showed a side of vulnerability and hope. His family and friends watched closely, praying for a just outcome. The girl who had interrupted the trial remained present, a quiet reminder of the bravery it took to speak out. The judge's role became even more important as he listened attentively to every detail. He asked probing questions, making sure that nothing was overlooked. His determination to get to the truth inspired respect from everyone. His pale face, once a symbol of shock, now reflected the weight of responsibility he carried in ensuring that justice was served. After days of careful consideration and review, the judge called the court to order to deliver his verdict. The room was packed, every seat filled with people eager to hear the decision that would bring closure to the long and difficult trial. The judge spoke slowly, emphasizing that justice was not just about punishment, but about fairness and truth. He acknowledged the new evidence brought forward after the girl's interruption and explained how it had changed the understanding of the case. In his verdict, the judge highlighted the importance of honesty in court and the dangers of hiding or manipulating facts. He reminded everyone that the legal system relies on truth and that without it, justice is impossible. Finally, the judge declared his decision. The accused was found not guilty, as the new evidence had shown serious doubts about the prosecution's claims. The courtroom reacted with a mix of relief, surprise, and reflection. For many, it was a moment of justice restored. The judge also called for further investigations into the misconduct revealed during the trial. He made it clear that those who tried to hide the truth or pressure witnesses would be held accountable. Justice, he said, must be for everyone, not just the powerful. Outside the courtroom, the story quickly spread. People were amazed by the girl's courage and the way her simple words had changed the course of a serious trial. The media highlighted her bravery, and she became a symbol of truth and justice in the community. Many were inspired by the trial's outcome. It showed that the justice system, while imperfect, could still work when people were brave enough to speak up and when judges were committed to fairness. The accused, now free, began the difficult process of rebuilding his life. The trial had taken a heavy toll on him and his family, but the verdict brought hope and a chance to heal. His story reminded everyone that no one should be judged without a full and honest hearing. The judge returned to his chambers, reflecting on the events that had unfolded. He knew that justice was not always easy, but it was worth fighting for. He was grateful for the girl's interruption, which had reminded him and everyone involved of the true purpose of the court. The girl, though young and quiet, had made a lasting impact. Her bravery had changed lives and shown that even the smallest voice can make the biggest difference. She continued to live her life, carrying with her the knowledge that sometimes courage means speaking out when it matters most. The trial ended, but its lessons lived on. It was a story about truth, courage, and the power of justice to overcome fear and deception. It reminded everyone that the law is only as strong as the people who believe in it, and that sometimes justice requires listening to the unexpected,